got it fixed. We're live. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. We like to use this opportunity to try to help people understand or just help try to diagnose issues. You know, we don't have a whole lot of time, but after a couple sentences, we try to do what we can to help. But let's talk about some weird issues that we've seen this week, Mike. I know last week we were working on a 590 and we did some injectors and stuff. Didn't we do injectors on that one? It was Doosan engine.
We did injectors and yeah,
I got it running. Anyways, after we got done working on it, we had this weird fault from it was an intake air volume fault. Gosh, I've worked on thousands of these machines and I've never seen that air intake volume fault. So what did we find, Mike?
Pretty much.
Enjoy my Snickers. Hey, Bruce from Patriots here. Hey, Bruce.
Pretty much we found the map sensor was really dirty. We pulled it out and that thing was black, dude. Sensor's like usually turquoise. So we pulled it out and it was black and I'm like, oh, it looks fine. But then you're like, no, it's like turquoise. So we sprayed off with some map sensor cleaner and it looked completely new. And so what we did to see that was we went into Engine Analyzer and we found that the airflow was in the yellow. It wasn't where it should have been.
So we were about 10 grams per second when it was dirty.
10, was it grams or gallons?
Grams per second.
Grams per second.
And after we cleaned it, we were well
up
over
to 20
grams per second.
Yeah, so we were only out of the yellow at high idle. So
so it idles when it would throw the code.
Yep.
Yeah, it was kind of a unique code. You know, it's like as long as we've been doing this and as many machines we worked on, we're still learning something new every day. So that's also kind of the point behind what we're doing here. Let's learn something new, talk about weird problems, and see what we can find. Let's say we had that one, and then you also found out today that a non-enclosed cab machine can have HVAC faults, even though it doesn't have HVAC.
Working on a 650, S650 M series, and doesn't have AC. To an AC code, an HVAC relay error on, or whatever.
HVAC error relay on. So
basically, what was happening is it has a signal wire to tell the gateway controller that the relay is on, and that wire is getting a short to power. And you'd think that they'd like get rid of that in the computer, but they don't.
Yeah, it's just a standard option in the gateway controller. They're all kind of wired for HVAC, whether or not the cab comes with it or not. The computer doesn't care either way. So awesome. All right. Well, that's a couple things that we learned this week.
Oh, one more thing.
What is it?
I got ahead from Friday Parts.
Here we go.
I got ahead from Friday Parts. This machine back here, it's hard to see, but put the head all the way on, filled it up with coolant just to find out that my air filter and my muffler are leaking coolant. There was a hole in the exhaust port of the machine, or of the brand new head, and it filled the turbo up with coolant, and it was dripping out both ends of the turbo into the air intake and out through the muffler. And so yeah, we had to take it all the way back down, and we found they drilled way too far through the water jacket into the exhaust port.
It was just a machining area. Mike spent all day, got this head put on. Everything was perfect. He was topping off the coolant. He said, "Hey Brady, my muffler's leaking coolant."
And I was so confused. I was like, am I tweaking or what is happening?
I said, "That's impossible, Mike. Keep filling it up." And then it started coming out of the air filter.
Well, he came over, he looked at it, he's like, "It looks like it's leaking." I'm like, "It's leaking."
That's the craziest thing. So during manufacturing, they drilled one of the coolant holes all the way into the exhaust port. So it filled up the whole cylinder, filled up the exhaust, filled up the turbo. So yeah, Friday Parts, we've had a lot of good luck, with their parts, but it still feels like it's a gamble. It still feels like we're rolling the dice every time, and this one bit us. So now we're doing the job twice, and
fix it once, fix it right.
Yeah, it's we of course they're replacing the head. They're sending us a new head, but we can't double charge for the labor. We're just out on that
right here. So our first question: S300 Rodent access stop. Any airflow concerns for it? Can install edge Trim with vertical bulb around back door to seal 3/4 gap around perimeter. Can seal off body holes over the axles.
Yeah, I've actually seen people who there's someone who makes a kit that has all the plugs for all the holes on those machines. You can plug off every single hole, and it's not going to be an airflow issue. If anything, it's probably going to help with airflow with the way it pulls through that cooler and everything. So yeah, anything you want to do around the door and plug up all them holes. I've seen kits out there. I just can't tell you who makes them or where I've seen them, where I've found them. I've never installed one myself, but if you can come up with something, yeah, seal off as much as you can. And when I know when I was in North Dakota, we had a lot of issues with the rodents and stuff getting inside, and we had these little packets. They sold everywhere. I don't know. It almost looked like herbs and spices, like a tea bag. And we would put those inside the machine, and that really helped a lot. I don't remember what they were because I don't have much issue out here like I did up there with the small rodents. But yeah, there's all kinds of different ways to do it. But yeah, feel free to plug it up as much as you can.
Right here we have, I'm a farmer, Nathan Dunsmore, who works on most of my equipment. Nice. I have a T595 with 500 hours. I want to know what year your 595 is. Is it an M3 or an M2?
500 hours. I'm sure it's probably just
M3
an M2. Yeah.
And don't they have M3 595s now?
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering. Those things are sweet. I have a 2003 R Precision. I have a 2003.
This guy's really supported the channel a lot. I appreciate that.
7063G, the orange on the back door and the gray on the top cat, need repainted. Any recommendations? We got this guy named Jesse. Call him.
To paint it.
To paint the door and like this one right here.
Yeah. So on my machines, when I paint like the wheels and the doors, I use the Rust-Oleum brand. That's actually Kubota orange. I don't use Bobcat orange, and really? I get it at Tractor Supply. Yeah, because I can buy it in a gallon from Tractor Supply. So that's Kubota orange. The top, the gray here, I paint with. I did use the Bobcat paint on that. You could buy in the quartz, but it's very expensive. The best thing to do is get you a panel. Or something with that gray on it, and just take it to your automotive shop and just have them mix it and match it. That's what I'm going to do next time is have them match it. Because I don't like black. I hate it when people paint it black because it's not a black. It's a charcoal. What do they call
Bobcat charcoal.
Bobcat charcoal, Bobcat black, whatever they want to call it. So yeah, because to me the details matter. So I like to make sure it matches. But
right here, hey guys, what's the best way to drain the fuel tank out of on a T550? Do they have plugs on the bottom?
No, they don't have plugs on the bottom anymore.
Drill a hole in the bottom of the.
Yeah, just drill a hole in it, and
there you go.
Yeah, put some JB weld on it when you're done. No, I mean, yeah, unfortunately, the best way to do that is to pump them out. What I do is I drive the machine kind of up. You kind of want the back of the tank because your filler neck is over there on the right side. So I drive like the front track or tire or whatever up on a block, the front left one, so it kind of tilts it back toward that area, and then I pump it out with the pump. That's really the best way to do it.
Look right here, Justin Jose. Hey Brady, order will ship out tomorrow. Who's the new guy next to you? Don't remember him from last. Dang man,
I know he's the one that called you out last week.
Man, hey, but you know what?
Oh, guess who the first guy to use it was though? The new guy.
Yep, I got to use it. So. This thing was sweet. We used it out in the field on an E42 and T66. So thank you. This thing is awesome, dude.
So it worked good?
It worked great. It was perfect.
So did you loosen the bowl first, or did you take the filter off?
He took the filter off, and then he just used his regular band wrench and this, just like this. Just used it like that.
Yeah. Oh, because you don't have a vise on the back here. Because I'll put that big filter in a vise.
But he used this to tighten it. So that's why I told him you tighten it by the bowl that whichever one's looser will tighten first.
Yep.
The T66 has enough room to tighten it by the bowl, but the Excavator doesn't. So the T66, he was tightening it with this. So I guess you could, but I think if you were trying to take it off by the bowl would come off first. So
what if we had this, Justin, and we put a 1/2-inch hole right here for except make it real short, and put a 1/2-inch square hole so we could put a 1/2-inch extension or ratchet in there.
For what?
For the excavator. So you can go down, and now you can put on the excavator one.
And just make it this big.
Yeah.
Right here. Just
Mike looked at me like that was a dumb idea.
No, I didn't realize where you were going, but that is sick. Yeah, so cut it right here, put a 1/2 inch hole right there, or a 3/8. You wouldn't even need a. I don't know.
Probably the bigger the better to keep. So because I wouldn't want a 3/8 to strip.
Yeah, you're right.
Being plastic. But,
and then can we get one out of billet too?
Oh yeah, he wants one out of billet, one out of tungsten, and one out of uranium as well. Overkill. All right,
Okay.
we're getting behind.
No weird issues, but a question. This is DJA. A question on Kubota engine compatibility. Would a DF972 3-cylinder D3 series Kubota gas engine be interchangeable with a D series diesel 3-cylinder? I've never even heard of a gas engine.
They're almost the exact same engine. They really are. Whether or not they're fully interchangeable as far as the bell housing and everything goes, I'm not 100% sure on that. But from what I understand, it's almost the exact same engine, just different head. So it should be interchangeable from what I understand, but I can't say that 100%.
Nathan here says he's got the 595. He says it has what I think is a rubbed harness issue in the cab accessory circuit, backup camera, radio, and power port keeps pulling the fuse. Does that one still have the harness that goes? So if you pick up your cab, you'll take the 2 3/4 inch nuts off on the inside. You can pick up your cab, and the harness will come down, and it always rubs right there where it comes down. It'll rub something, it'll hit something. There's always huge holes on those harnesses. So
when you get the cab up, you'll see it above your head. It comes out of the cab and runs down along it and all the way back. But there's multiple rub spots in there, but it's that section that goes from the cab all the way down to the mainframe harness. You want to inspect. That's the first place we always look, and it usually always ends up being where the issue is. That doesn't mean that's where it's going to be, but majority of the time it is.
It's a 2019, so that's an M2.
M2, yeah.
Sergio, I've been trying to catch you guys for 3 weeks now.
Awesome. Well, glad you made it.
4 o'clock every Tuesday, my friend.
Glad you made it.
05 Bobcat T300 with no auxiliaries. The panel light is when you the panel lights up when you activate it. How do you test?
The panel light is.
So you're saying that panel lights up when you do it, but nothing happens, or?
Yeah, can you clarify that for me? When you press the button, your auxiliary light comes on, but you have no auxiliaries, and if you have no codes, usually that's going to be in the handle itself.
Joystick.
Yeah, the joystick.
The switch is broken.
You
can try the detent. See if the detent works. Lights, but no auxiliary.
Lights, okay, but no auxiliary. So. And if you have no codes, okay, I say that, but I talked to someone about a week ago with this same issue, and it found out that they just never used their auxiliaries or bought a machine where the auxiliaries were never used, so they sat for so long. Yeah, the spool was stuck. I'm sorry, it wasn't the main spool, but how your auxiliaries activate is you've got 2 solenoid stems, basically, and they're both electronically activated. And what you're doing is you're moving a spool to allow charge pressure to come in and move your main auxiliary spool. But what it was those solenoids were actually seized. So they were getting power to them. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get your cab up, and you don't have to release the brakes. You can, with your arm bar up and everything, you can still run your auxiliaries. And you'll want to back probe those coils on either side of your control valve. With your auxiliaries activated, the machine running, move your paddle switch and see if you're getting voltage to those coils. That's where you want to start on that. If you get voltage to the coils and nothing's happening, then it means either the stem inside that coil is not moving or the main auxiliary spool is stuck. But more than likely, I find that those stems. But it's kind of rare to see both of them stuck, but that's a possibility. So that's where you're going to have to start. You're going to have to make sure you're getting voltage to those coils.
Or your joystick is broken. 2017 S770 broke the top of the Pental shaft, both sides, several times. What?
Oh, we talked to him. Oh, I say we talked to him last week. But
I wasn't there, so you talked to him. Factory said I'm pulling the handles too far back. Installed rear stops and longer bolts. Foot pedal machine. How does that even happen? I've never even heard of that before. You're strong, dude.
I mean, do you have a lot of resistance in there? That's the first thing I would ask. Do you have a lot of resistance in there? But on that machine, what's that? It's a 770?
A 770, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got the large pintle shafts. We did have some pumps with some smaller pintle shafts, like in the T180s, T190s. They used to break all the time. But on that machine, gosh, I've never seen them break, man. There's no way you're pulling the handles back too hard. There's no way. Because the if you're breaking the pintle shaft, is that what you said?
That's what he said right here. Let me go up. He broke the top of the pintle shaft. Yeah.
So if
On
you're
both sides,
if you're breaking
several
this, if
times.
you're breaking the square pintle shaft,
Dude,
the hell?
I know.
But because your pintle lever is aluminum, you would break that
strip it
aluminum
out,
pintle lever before you break that pintle shaft. I've never seen one of the bigger pintle shafts broke. I've seen a lot of the smaller ones, but on that machine you're gonna have the big ones, dude. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean you should have stops, but the stops, that keeps us from wearing out that aluminum pintle lever. But man, I honestly, either we got a bad batch of the pintle shafts on the swash plates. We got some bad swash plates, bad castings or something. I have no idea, dude. That is crazy.
I've never heard of that before. You're strong, dude.
Mm-mm.
S300 engine temp gauge not working. How to isolate issue, and what wire jumps or forcing good ground is done, such as at temp sender 5,500 and a gauge to test those.
Engine temp gauge not working. How to isolate issue.
Is it throwing a code, or is it just not working?
So I'd have to see the serial number on that 300, but no, because the S300 they use both a Bobcat controller and then they did have some that use gateway controllers, and I'm not sure which version you have.
He says no codes.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly.
So it wouldn't, because it would.
Yeah, so I don't know if he has a gateway style or the Bobcat controller style. But I think those are 2-wire cooling sensors on those either way.
Yeah. And it would tell you if it was cut or something. It's out of range high or out of range low.
Yeah.
Well, remember I had one machine that I worked on where the gauge was stuck. The needle itself was stuck.
Yeah. It's
and
a
we
gauge
just replaced
problem. But that's what he's wanting to know is how do we know if it's the gauge or if it's the sending unit itself?
I guess the best way to test it would just to put a new one in, and then
Yeah, because it usually, whenever I have one bed, majority of the time it is the sender itself. Sender, harness, and then the panel. Because off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't know the resistance in those, and I don't think any of our schematics or manuals show the resistance in those sensors. I'd have to go look. Kyle's not down here. That's usually what he does for me. We pull that wiring schematic real quick and see. So off the top of my head on that one, I'm really not sure, but usually I start with the sending unit.
That's how I did it at the dealership. Just throw a new one in, test it real quick. But we had extras, So.
B2003, the engine to piston to wall clearance spec. That one I don't know off the top of my head. I will have to look in the manual for that. Yeah. On the 2003, that's a lot of specs for us to remember whenever we build an engine.
See, he says the spec is 500 to 3,000.
Oh, that's what he says. So I didn't know if that's what he was. That's what the sensor spec would be for the reading, but I don't know. Like if you were to test it at the panel to see if you were getting that resistance in the wiring, I'm not sure.
I mean, did you put your multimeter up and check and see if it's within there? I guess it would.
See if it's moving. See if it's moving at temperature. You have to back probe it with the resistance and see if it was working that way. But I think as cheap as those are, I would probably just swap it.
I mean, I guess you could. Could you just jump it and see if the needle just shoots or what?
Probably. I think when you unplug it, it's going to code though.
Well, then you jump it.
And then you jump it, then it's still going to code for
throw it
out of range in either direction. Yeah. So I'm not sure on that. I haven't tried that.
Out of range high, maybe it would shoot all the way up, and then you go out of range low, it go shoot all the way down again.
Okay. We already moved on from Sergio's there. The lights on, no auxiliary. Yeah. So yeah.
We did that already. Right here. What's the best way to clean up the fuel tank? Machine is throwing codes about water and fuel.
So yeah, it depends on the machine. Like we just discussed a minute ago, or was he the one asking about the 500 series? Some of the older machines did have plugs on the fuel tank underneath where you could just pull a plug out and drain the fuel.
No, he wasn't asking about it.
So I've dealt with this a lot, especially people back east, that we get algae and all kinds of stuff in there because they are getting water in the tank. Sometimes they're cracked. Sometimes they got a bunch of dirt and stuff in between the oil pan and rocks and all, and it can rub a hole in either your oil pan or your fuel tank, and then you start getting water intrusion, in different areas like that. But it all depends on serial number. I know, like we had some A300s. I remember we had that metal spout going into a plastic can, and they would always crack around where the filler neck went in. I don't know if you remember that, but
I've never even worked on one in my life.
yeah, and they would leak fuel when you filled them up, and they'd leak water, of course, when they got lower. But yeah, so if you're cleaning it out, well, number one, we have to drain all the fuel out of it, and then use, if you suspect there's an algae or something in there, there's algicides and stuff that you can buy from any of your auto parts store. Really, you can get that cleaned out, and let's use a good fuel treatment to help disperse all that water, and just make sure you use really good fuel filters to catch what little bit of water's in there. But you got to find out how the water's getting in there is the biggest thing. And sometimes that can be really tough to do. But yeah, pump it out, use some additives. That usually works really good, and that'll kind of get you going the right direction. Good fuel filters for sure.
T190 case drain filter, is there one for both sides? Only way to change it is to take the tracks off. Also, right side hose on hydro cooler sucks when the snap ring gives up. Ask me how I know.
Yeah, and sometimes the coolers, they just wear out, and that ring just won't hold them anymore. The hose itself gets wore out. So sometimes we try to replace the hose, and you can buy the seal kit and the snap ring on the cooler, and sometimes that won't even work. We have to replace the cooler too. But yeah, so depending on the serial number, there were so many versions of the T190. Some of them did have two. If you've got one in the center of what we call, is this the chain case, it's the center housing, but you don't have a chain case, of course, in a track machine, but the center housing back there in the back, if you've just got one case drain filter and you got like 4 or 5 lines going into it, then you've only got one.
I guess if it's on the side, then you'll have one on the other side.
If it's on the sides, you'd have one on both sides. But if you see that one in the center, kind of in the back of the machine there, then more than likely it's probably only got the one. It seems like the F series before the T190.
See, I don't even know G series, F. I don't even know the difference between the.
No, that's
I know M series. I know R series.
G series started with the triangular headlights. So
okay,
square headlights, C and F, triangular, G, and difference between G and K. Easiest way to tell is just hydraulic fan or not. So belt drive fan, G series, hydraulic fan, K series.
I learn something new every day.
Yeah, so
I'll work on that old crap.
That's right. I know, boomer machines.
Currently working on a T750. T750.
Yeah, that's a thing, man.
Really?
We just don't see a lot of them out here, yeah.
The left side brake isn't releasing. What's the difference between that and the 740?
The 750 is not a radial lift machine, right?
Oh, so it's like a T62.
I think it's still a 74 horsepower, though, I think.
The left side brake isn't releasing. Check brake solenoid and stem. Also check the check valve and spring on the main control valve. The over the shoulder valve. Is that what he's talking about?
Something like that.
Can it be internal leakage?
It can absolutely be internal leakage. What happens is you got a big brake piston inside your drive motor there, and the brake piston has a seal around it. And then again, depending on the serial number, I don't know if you have the old style or the new style drive motor, but either way, they both have a piston in there, and that piston has a seal on it, and more so on the older style drive motor than the newer ones. We got different seals kind of on those. But on the old style, if you look at your motor and on the back of it, you have to look at it from inside the machine, or if you look at the back of your drive motor and you got a bunch of bolts all the way around that head there, that's where your brake piston is. And sometimes what happens is oil will leak past that, and then oil will get on top of your brake piston. There's not supposed to be anything up there. You've got a plate and a spring on top of your piston. If you get oil up there and you try to move that piston against that plate, you're hydrolocking, and it can't release. And they're teed in together. So if one is releasing and the other one's not, then yes, I think you got an internal leakage issue on your drive motor, on the brake piston seal itself.
Nice. Right here. Brady, I removed the drive on a T300 because it seemed to be driving through the brakes. I applied shop air to push the brakes, disc, piston out of the brake house, air passed through two of the case, through the case string. Air passed through to case string.
Yeah, to the case drain. So it didn't on a T300.
So we put air into the brake port and it went through the case drain hole.
I went through the case drain hole. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, it should have just blew the piston right out of it.
Seals are blown out or what?
Yeah, I think, is it the shaft seal's blown out? So maybe not the brake piston seal, but the shaft seal itself, I think, might be what the problem is. So yeah, if it didn't come out, is yours threaded though? I mean, you don't have to use air, but if it's threaded, then you just pulled it. I'm sure you probably already got the piston out by now. And see if that top shaft seal, I think that's probably what gave away on that in that circumstance.
Bought a new T770, installed longer bolts and rear stops, fearing repeat. Oh, this is...
Yeah, the same one, yeah.
Bought a new T770, installed longer bolts and rear stops. Broke the tar... So his new one broke the top square piece right at the bottom of the bolt. His 2011 one never happened.
8,000 hours on that one. Yep.
You got to get an SJC machine, dude.
Man, stop with that SJC stuff. Good Lord. Some of us guys like old.
Well, he's too strong. That's what I'm trying to say.
It's not too. Yeah, man,
Get
great.
an S66 with manual controls.
That's weird. I'd almost have to see the machine and do kind of a failure analysis type thing on that, see what's going on.
You got to send us pictures of that, of the brake on the Pental.
That's weird. To break multiple of them. Really weird. Sam's S130 crank no start. All fuel injectors are working. Good compression throughout all cylinders. New glow plugs. Where else shall I look? No codes as well. If you've got fuel compression on S130, that engine will start. Period.
So something isn't working.
All fuel injectors are working. Does that mean you are getting fuel to the injectors?
So
how do you know
did you pop test them?
Yeah.
Or did you just crack the lines?
Yes.
How did you test your injectors?
Yes. Anything else? That's it.
Oh, that's it?
That's it.
Oh, I thought you were testing me for a second.
No. He's right.
I
need to know how you tested those injectors.
Yeah. If you pull your injectors out and you pop test it, that's how you verify your injectors are good. But you got to get fuel up to it.
And some guys will pull that fuel line off. You know, they'll twist it around and put the injector to the fuel line. Then they'll crank the engine over.
I guess.
And that way you can see if the injection pump is popping that.
Don't smoke a cigarette when you're doing that.
Yeah. So let me know if the injection pump is popping that injector and you've got compression, then you've got an intake blockage. Someone sucked a rag or a dog or something.
Or he's got that idle screw.
Idle. Okay, hang on. Well, let's think outside the box. Could you have a parasitic load?
Yeah, you could. You could
absolutely have a parasitic load. What we mean by that is you might have a hydraulic load on the engine. So, like Mike just said, take your drive belt off the
and then try
pump,
to start it again
and see what happens.
I was thinking the idle screw or whatever that was.
We've had some weird issues here lately. Yeah, the idle screw or the spring. Oh yeah,
the one on your MT engine, your reefer motor.
Yeah, we did one not too long ago that was a weird no start like that because the customer bought a reefer engine, and reefer engines are designed to run at a constant RPM. Well, he took the front cover off the reefer, put it on took the cover off his original Kubota and put on the reefer engine, but the idle screw was all messed up that was holding the injection pump. But if it used to run before and now it's not,
it's probably not, hasn't moved, huh?
Yeah. So take that main drive belt off and see what happens soon.
Alex, he was wondering about how to clean the fuel tank. It's the
T5. Yeah, and that's what we talked about at the very beginning of this. Was you've got to pump it out. There is no drain on that tank. I like to lift the machine up, kind of drive that front track up, the front left track up on a block or something, so it kind of tilts back in this direction.
So yeah, and what we did, well, I guess that was for algae, to try to get the algae out for that cat. Remember that?
Yeah.
We put in the algae killer stuff, and then brand new fresh diesel, and then we took it out and did wheelies and jumped
Sloshed it around.
Yeah, we took it off the ramps and jumped it. off the trailers and stuff, and sloshed the diesel around, and then we pumped it out, put
We did
new
that 3 or 4 times, didn't we?
yeah, put the
Mhm.
new diesel in with the stuff. And
So and
yeah, 'cause
the
we had algae. I mean, it's not really water, but it was clogging up the fuel filters and
was
stuff and
crazy.
killing it.
it was real slimy and stringy.
Just disgusting.
Yeah, it was nasty. But to do that, you know, where you fill your machine up, that's the filler neck. You know, it's just a clamp down there on that big rubber hose. You pull that big rubber hose off,
And then
I
there's a
pump
screen
it
there.
out. Yeah, I pull the screen out and I pump it out right there. And that's really the only good way to do it. So
X320, what is that?
that's the old excavator. That's before your time, boy.
Most of the stuff we talk about here are before my time. I've changed so many hoses, working great now. Move on to bucket pins and bushings. Aftermarket pins and bushings, or just go with OEM?
On pins and bushings, it's up to you.
They're not that much more expensive, are they?
I don't know how much, because I don't
I've
know.
never-
I'd have to price those, but I usually have good luck with that type of stuff. Aftermarket, it's things like seal kits that I've tried to go aftermarket on, and it seems like I get burned more often than not. So I stick with OEM, like on hydraulic cylinder seal kits and stuff like that. But pins and bushings,
I think they're pretty good.
yeah, I've never had an issue with aftermarket ones. If that's
And they're not terribly expensive.
if that's a better option for you, then yeah, go for it.
Right here, good tip for stuck rusty pins. Heat a big hammer as possible. Spray it with some penetrating oil.
Yeah, which
heat
pins?
it up with the.
Which pins are they,
Yeah.
and where are they?
If you got an air hammer,
That's what I was about to say. Is like the Bobtach pins, when they get stuck, man, a good air hammer works really good. So it depends on what pins they are and where. And
if you can get your hands on an oxyacetylene torch, just
yeah, but if you can't get any grease or any lubricant to go through the grease hole, and air hammer won't work, then you're going to have to use heat. And sometimes there's been instances where we just have to lance them out. You just have to burn a hole through the center of them and work them out that way. So that's a few of the tips that I got just real quick. But again, it kind of depends on which pin it is. I've used different methods for what pin, excavator. You know, is it a blade pin on one of the blade cylinders, something like that, where you can't get anything to it? You know, there could be a lot of options on that. So.
Yeah, we did that. I have an S630 2016 that shows an error for dirty air filter after moving it to an altitude of 6,700 feet. Whoa. Air filters are new. I've never seen that before. It's showing a stuck air filter or a dirty air filter.
Probably. I don't think it's the altitude, because we are also at altitude. I've got plenty of those machines up over 10,000 feet that I don't have any issues with. Usually, I find that it's probably the air sensor, the filter sensor itself. That's what I'd be
stuck.
Yeah, it's
a switch.
Yeah, it's just a switch, and I replace those quite often.
I've never replaced one before.
Really? Yeah, it seems like I do it in the field a lot, and
once you replace the air filter and the code's still on, then it's the switch.
I would think it's the switch, though. I think altitude is just a coincidence.
You got to get up to space to throw that code.
Yeah, because we got a lot of machines around 6,000-7,000 feet, and I got quite a few up over 10,000 feet, and I've never had that issue. So I would say that. And that's before the turbo and everything. That's just a vacuum switch at that point. So let's say. So yeah, I would think it's the switch.
Howdy from the tornado state of Tulsa.
That's old Russ.
Okay.
He's invited us to Tulsa, remember? He's always here. Thanks for coming back, Russ. That's awesome. Good to see you, buddy.
Hi, Brady. This is Ken Butera.
From Gwinnett County. You know where Gwinnett County is? No, that's my home state right there. I was from Walton County.
Gwinnett County.
Yeah, I was
Georgia.
The next county over, which I don't know. Our town was. I was actually from Loganville, and Loganville was kind of on that Gwinnett-Walton County border. I think part of Loganville was in County,
Georgia.
I'm
going to be repacking my skid steer lift cylinders for the first time. Any special tools? Ooh, O-ring compressor. Ooh, Takuchi. Boy, do we have special tools. I don't know. What is a Takuchi? What's the
same deal in the Takuchi as any other really cylinder.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the head.
Oh, the head.
What style of head is it?
I don't know.
Because you have multiple different special tools for Bobcat heads and cat heads. Then you have a special tool use spoons to take the seals out, and use special tools to get the freaking nut off. You need the big ass, as big as breaker bar you can get. That's why I never really liked doing cylinders, is because you need almost need a special tool to do everything.
Yeah, but at the same time, I've done them so many times without special tools.
Really?
Yeah, like if I didn't do it for a living, I wouldn't go out and buy all these. Like now we have all these cool ring compressors and ring stretchers and spoons and all that crap. But
I guess you can do it.
When I was growing up, we didn't have all that stuff.
Whatever, dude.
So I think if you're just doing it yourself and it's the only machine you have, I wouldn't put a bunch of money into.
Yeah, you'll just need this. You'll just need really. I guess the biggest thing you'll need is the socket big enough to fit on the net, the rod nut. Some people don't have big sockets like that, and then you'll need a big breaker bar. Put it in the vise.
Yeah, the socket and the breaker bar is the only really special tool I can think of.
Then you can just use picks to get the seals out.
Sam said he had
you need the tool to get the head off, a big crescent wrench.
Oh yeah, it depends on the head. If it's a crescent or a big pair of vice grips, or not vice grips, but channel locks, or pipe wrench or something. Yeah, there's plenty of ways to do it without special tools.
It says that he removed the injectors, didn't remove the line, so I could see if it sprayed. One injector didn't spray.
So replace that one injector. So one injector doesn't really tell you anything, because that thing will run on 2 cylinders. Ask me how I know.
He'll try. Yeah.
We drove that. Where's it at? That
right
machine there. We drove in on 2 cylinders. So
I'll remove the drive belt. Cool. Let us know how it goes.
Yeah.
2017 E26. Is there any reason not to use the side of bucket to move dirt? I seem to recall seeing a Bobcat vid that said it was bad for the swing motor.
Well, technically, the swing motor is not really designed to backfill trenches, and that's usually what it is. People dig a trench out and then they use the bucket to swing it,
smack it back in.
Mm-hmm. It's not good. It's not that. It's hard to say it's not good for it, because there are reliefs and stuff inside of that.
Yeah, I mean it's like,
but it's not designed for that.
When you hit it, you're nothing mechanical. You're hitting. I guess
it's just hard.
It's just relief valves.
Yeah,
it's hard on the relief valves, but
yeah, it can be hard on the relief, the cross ports and all on that. And
but you're not. If it's a little bit of dirt, it's an E26. You're not hitting into a wall and stopping. You're just.
But I see people out there just hitting big piles of dirt and just hitting it, just moving it back into the trench.
Yeah.
Something like that. No, if you're having to hit it and you keep stalling it out. But let's say you can move the dirt and not stall the motor. I think you're fine. But if you're stalling the motor, I would avoid that. I can't say exactly what the consequences would be if you didn't. If you continue to do that, but
maybe your relief valves would wear out, and then you wouldn't be able to stop as much.
Yeah, I don't know. So I can say it's not designed for that, but if you're not stalling it out, I would say you would be okay. Because I don't do a lot of. It's not like we do swing motors and carrier bearings or carrier. What's the word I'm looking for? What's a carrier? But your
ring gear.
In other words, I don't do a lot of repairs because people are hitting dirt all the time. So that's kind of hard to answer. But yeah, I would almost agree, Bobby. It's not designed for that. But yeah, it's hard to answer. I know.
Marta Agard says, "How y'all tuning in from the kitchen?"
Have we ever? Oh, Marta's tuning in from the kitchen. Oh,
I know. I better be careful now.
Well, you're gonna have to go here in a minute.
But yeah, I'm not the one who has to go today.
Cold,
no, I'm not the one who has to go today. So you can't say anything to me today.
Have we ever adjusted?
Right here.
Yeah, I know. All right, I'm with you. All right.
Speaking of pins and bushings, have you ever had the line bore?
Yes. There's times that we could have, and there's probably jobs that we've missed because I've quoted up hiring someone else out. I've just never needed to do enough to invest in my own equipment. Well, I'd love to, but I haven't, because it is really expensive, and there's a lot of, I'm not going to say it. Well, there is a decent amount, a lot of training, a lot of special equipment. It's expensive to get into that, but we do have several people here close to us that specialize and are really good in that. So we would hire it out in that case.
Our Precision, I really enjoyed you guys doing these videos. Thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, this guy has supported us for a long time. I recognize his name from way back.
I would really enjoy hearing your experiences about one of the most reliable track machines around 75 horsepower. He does not like the 76.
Yeah.
The
T650.
650.
595 and C650.
M3.
I don't have a ton of experience. I would almost
I like
recommend.
the M3s. They're
I'd
cool.
almost recommend the M3, especially with the
They have the Bosch fuel system,
Yeah.
so they're better than the Delphi.
So the Bosch fuel systems have been out on the Doosan engine since 2020, and ask us how many injectors we've replaced. 0.
Ask me how many Delphi injectors I replaced.
Oh God,
I couldn't even count.
Can't even count. So
Yeah.
yeah, but even again, it all goes back to maintenance. And now that we got the new style fuel filters, not even on the M2, I mean, we just got a lot lower amount of failed injectors out there. So as long as you take care of your equipment and the do proper maintenance and everything, the Delphi systems were good in my opinion. The Doosan engines are great. So the best track machine, in my opinion,
650
is the 650 at that higher horsepower level for sure. And as a matter of fact, to go back on that, they discontinued the T650 to come out with those R series, and it was almost a customer revolt against Bobcat. So Bobcat had to put them back into manufacturing. I think they're coming out of the Czech Republic now, but they had to start building them again for customer demand because everyone wanted the T650s.
Right here. 2016 T870 with the Doosan. How hard is it to change the fuel level sending unit? I know this one. Also, looking to remove the DEF system from the machine. Is it worth it? So, I've done an S850, and dude, it was really hard to change the fuel sending unit.
Well, with that, there's multiple serial number breaks and there's multiple tanks in there. Some of them were easier than others, but
the one I did, you have to go in. I had to go in. So I had to take the tire off the right side, and then take.
Well, he's got a T, so you don't have tires on that one.
Right. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah.
You'd have to take the track off, and then go in through the side, take the pump mount off, and then go in, stick your arm all the way in, and.
Yeah, it doesn't matter really what the serial number is. It's gonna suck.
They suck on those ones.
And the problem is the tops of them are plastic, so sometimes I'll get back there where you're almost to it. You've already pulled out the fan and everything. You crawl over the top of the pumps just to find out when you put a socket down on top of that thing or try to get it out. You strip it out, and it's like welded. It says plastic and plastic.
So what I've done is I've gotten my Nipex Cobras and get it on there. That's what I always end up using.
I think one time I heated up a socket that was too small for it. Like
dude, that is really smart. And just
melted it on top, let it cool down. And I got one out like that. But
he says looking to delete it.
Yeah, don't do it. I don't know who you are or where you're from, but I can't recommend that. But I think there's some folks in Canada that might be able to help you. Look into it a little bit, and you might find some help on that. So.
T300, should I replace the inner brake seal and the brass in the brake drive shaft?
I mean, it depends on if the brass bushing is wore out or not. But yeah, I mean, you can kind of see it and tell if it's wore out, and because your piston will kind of get hung up in there to it if it's not sliding in and out of. So, I mean, it's not a bad idea. I don't always do it. I've seen some that are just trashed and I've replaced them, but you don't have to if it's not bad.
Is there a way to give my E88, 2023 E88 more swing power? It struggles to swing uphill with okay, so you're sitting on a hill and you're... I don't know.
That's a really good question.
The only way to make your motor more powerful would be more pressure or more displacement. That would be, you'd have more torque. And there's no way to do either. Turn up your relief valve on that one. I guess you could adjust your cross port release. That's kind of sketchy though, if you don't know what you're doing.
I don't know if that's not a cross port issue though, is it?
Well,
I'd almost have to look at the schematic on that. I mean, I know what you're talking about because I've heard that plenty of times before.
Wouldn't that be your cross port if you're coming up? You have too much pressure on one side.
But I don't think he's going over relief on that because that cross port's 5,000 psi. I think you've got another relief in play there. Yeah, the cross ports are really high pressure. I mean, I think it would swing easy if it was opening the cross port. But I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that. That's an interesting question. I'd almost have to look into that. But I've heard that issue before. I mean, what size bucket? Because I know some people are using like big 4-foot buckets or something on them damn things, and they're holding so much material that there's nothing you can do. It's just not going to have the power. It's just there's just not enough motor there to move that.
Oiga, eu trabajo. I don't know.
No habla. Where's our Spanish guy?
No hablo español. Perdón. What manual do I need to see description and illustration of hydraulic valves location? Service manual.
Yeah, you'll need a service manual for that.
Just search Bobcat 325 service manual. Maybe you'll get lucky and someone posted it for free.
Yeah. Yep. That's one way.
Great time hearing the advice, tips, and trick. Even school in Colorado, in Denver. We talked about some of your videos. Yep.
Yeah, they used to show like in the fuel system stuff. They used to show some of the fuel system.
Nope, the orange thing. Look what it says.
Thing.
Any tips or tricks to take off the R-Series fuel filter?
What are you talking about? Is this
See this right here?
Did he just trip into this video or?
See this right here? This is a special tool to take off. I guess it's just to take the bowl off, but
yeah, that's to take.
I mean, that's what I use. I'll show you.
We talked about some of these things. Tips we got. And that's cool. So you must be with the dealer, but yeah, this is get the bowl off. One of the guys who are here in the chat, or he's actually designing these, 3D printing these, and we will have these hopefully on our website this week. He said they're shipping out today to us, and these work really awesome to get the bowl off. But the filter itself, this is Mike's go-to.
This is what I like right here.
Yeah.
You can see it's bigger than my arm, and you just put it at the lowest setting, and it'll grip the fuel filter really well. It's good for the R-Series excavators because you can reach around like this and get it. So,
and that works for Mike. Like, you know, and that's always what I say when I'm doing these videos is that you put two of the best Bobcat mechanics, or, you know, because I've worked side by side with some of the best technicians in the state. And we always have different ways of doing things. So for me, I like to use a filter strap wrench, you know, one of the big nylon.
Yeah, but every time I've seen you use one of those, it doesn't work.
It's never not worked. What are you talking about?
It didn't work on that Kubota filter. You remember that?
Oh, that's a Kubota. He's talking about R-Series fuel filters, man. We had a Kubota hydraulic filter that we did break it. We had to air hammer that one off.
I've had to air hammer every single one.
Yeah. But for the fuel filters, I like to use the big web. It's like a 2-inch web strap wrench. Mike likes that. Yeah, we just have different taste in how things work. But this is what you need for the bowl. We will have this available in a few days. But that's cool. I like having other Bobcat mechanics here, and please join us anytime you can, because you will probably know some things that I can't answer. Because I talk to Bobcat techs. If you're part of the online, the Facebook group with the Bobcat techs, sometimes I ask questions there because people will see problems on the East Coast that I don't ever see over here in a dry climate, or on the West Coast, or we might see something that they don't see. So it's interesting, and it's good to have other people here to help with some of these questions. So I really do appreciate you being here, man. I love having other techs here.
2006 Bobcat T300 SJC, no lift tilt valve light, no lift tilt function. Fuse is okay, actuator's okay. The light doesn't turn on, but when you press it, when you press the unlock,
well, does the armbar switch? Or does the armbar light turn on when you?
Can you move the machine?
Does it drive? Yeah. Does the brake release? I mean, usually if the light don't come on, you would have a code. So majority of the time, if it's coded out for something, it's just not going to release. So like Mike said, if you hit the press to operate button, can you drive at that point? And just know, does it sound like it's going over to rev, like it's trying to move, and it just doesn't? So yeah, there's a few more questions I'd have to answer on that one.
Love the channel. Have a 95 743B. Great machine. 4,000 hours. Transmission is bad. Had a hydraulic shop builder once. Still no good. Whoa. Anything I can do? It's very complicated. Very complicated.
It's still just a piston pump. I mean, how do we?
Are we talking the
743B is still
chain case? Oh, I guess it would be the hydrostatic.
Yeah. So I guess okay.
It's very complicated. I think if you don't have this service manual.
Yes. Yeah, I would definitely suggest getting a service manual. But did you check your filter? How do you know? I mean, what are you calling the trans? Because what I call the transmission would be like the chain case and like this machine behind me, because anything that transfers power to the wheels can be considered a transmission. But then we have,
But he said a hydraulic shop rebuilt it, so
yeah, so
probably
it's,
the hydrostat.
yeah, I would say the hydrostatic, because I doubt it'd be both motors bad. But, you know, if you pull your filter off, you got a bunch of brass and stuff in there. You probably lost your piston, your rotating group, or your valve plates. So, you know, on some of them 743, they had vane pumps for the charge pump. And yeah, maybe you have a lack of charge pressure or something. That's why you're losing that pump. So we got to kind of find the source of the problem, kind of do a failure analysis, see what happened on that. You know, make sure that you have good charge pressure on that machine. And that's what we were talking about earlier. We were talking about charge pressure, you know, like a T590 is going to be, you know, 430, 450 PSI charge pressure. Those old machines, the 743s, are like 60 PSI charge pressure, but you have to have it or that pump will die.
BC, does that mean British Columbia?
No, that's Bobcat.
Oh, Bobcat.
BC.
I assumed it. I saw
Yeah, British
873, so I
Columbia,
assumed
sir.
it was a
Yeah.
873 Deutz. Engine will any timing belt tension gauge work, or do you need the one that comes with the complete timing belt kit?
You can't get the original tensioner that I use anymore. The original, I guess OTC made it, but now you can't buy that one anymore. So you can use a separate tension gauge. It's just finding out what that tension on the belt should be. People overthink that too much. I had conversations with guys, and I just finally had to get out of the conversation because they were overthinking. I mean, a timing belt's kind of a timing belt. There are timing belt tensioning specs. So let's say you go to Amazon, you find a belt tensioner gauge. It's going to have a different reading on it than what mine has and what the Bobcat manual is going to tell you to tension it at. So you just have to, you're working with different specs, but it all comes out to the same thing. So I'm like, okay, well, what is a Toyota timing belt tension supposed to be? And it tells you how many pounds per square inch or whatever it's supposed to be. And you just have to transfer that number to your new system. So just find you a timing belt spec, because they're all pretty close, and get your belt close to that and you'll be fine. We don't necessarily have to overthink it. As long as you get it tensioned close to where it needs to be, you'll be fine on that.
Right here, Chris Jackson. Hey guys, wanted to thank you for the actuator video. Got stuck with the Lemon S185 ACS issue after doing a manual calibration. It's been working great. Saved me $1,700 Australian dollars.
Australian dollars, doll hairs.
How many US dollars is that?
I don't know.
500?
I bet it's pretty close. I don't know the way our dollar is. It's probably 2.5 million. But awesome. Well, I'm glad that saved you. Just a calibration saved you. It probably put it back into spec for a little while. Hopefully it'll last. I don't know how long it'll last, because usually a calibration, it shouldn't have kind of really been out of calibration, but good. I'm glad it's working for you though. Hopefully it'll continue to work for you.
Another for an E26 recently had a leaking boom cylinder. Shop said they had to hone the barrel. 600 hours on it. That seems crazy to me.
Well, it depends on what happened.
So
did the piston crack or break, or did you get some brass in it? I mean,
some
is
a rod bent, or did something else happen?
And I've seen hydraulic shops that say every barrel has to be honed, and very rarely I ever see, unless we got like a catastrophic damage or a piece of material or something got stuck in there.
Yeah.
On these small cylinders, we don't really worry about that. You know, if this was a $10,000 giant boom cylinder on a Cat, you know, it's a different story. But these little cylinders, he must have saw something that we don't usually see, but usually we can still see the original honing marks in ours with that amount of hours in it. So I don't know. It seems like maybe some debris or something happened to it. It is a little unusual to me as well. But without seeing it, I don't know.
Stephen Fuller says, thanks, guys. I'm a new subscriber.
Well,
really
thank you for
appreciate your advice.
subscribing.
Thank you, man. Whoops. T770 high flow goes in and out. Is that a solenoid? Very vague question.
It is. If it goes in and out, it should code when it turns off the high flow. Does it not? Do you not get any codes? I guess I've probably seen them where it doesn't. Are you losing? Is the whole auxiliary hydraulic system turning off, or are you just going in and out of high flow? That's two separate things, I guess. So that's kind of a vague question. Hard to answer that one.
I just got code 1403 for the fuel shutoff solenoid. Now it won't crank. It won't crank. Good thing I got an extra solenoid. Before I did the code, I did remove the drive belt and nothing. Nothing, even after he removed the drive belt. Dang, you removed it fast.
Mm-hmm. He went straight to it. But now you've got an extra solenoid. Yeah. So yeah, you can just pull the solenoid out and you can put your finger in there. There's nothing that's going to hit your finger because you're going to have to put your finger in there to shut it off. So a lot of times if I got a bad solenoid, I just pull the solenoid out, start the engine, but you have to put your finger in there to press on the lever to shut the engine down, or you could put the solenoid back in the hole to shut it down. But that's another thing I was going to say, that, you know, if you were getting fuel from your injection pump when you were turning the engine over, then that tells me that solenoid was working at one time. So it sounds like you've got a couple different issues going here. So now leave the belt off, pull that solenoid out real quick, and see if the engine will start.
Should put the file on Thingiverse. People talking about a service manual.
Yeah, I don't know what Thingiverse is. It
Never
must
heard
be.
of it.
Huh? That's your generation.
I
there.
know.
I'd say put on Google.
Put on Google.
Yeah, people are funny about service manuals like that. Nobody likes to share anything. Everybody wants money for it.
Mm-hmm. Last week I asked you about steering issues on a A300. What I did was set the pump mechanical neutral and set the mechanical neutral on the controller to solve the problem.
Sweet.
Nice. I love doing that. That's my favorite.
What did he do? He set the
set-
mechanical neutral on the control. Oh, so you did a
So you set the pump.
calibration.
Yeah, you set the pump. You have to always set the pump first, then the controller.
Mm-hmm. Good job, man.
That's
awesome. Yeah.
It's good.
And where did you learn how to do that? Was that were you going by the service manual or? But good job, dude. That's not something. Not everybody can do a job like that. That's awesome.
It says this 88 runs a 36-inch digging bucket. Came with a 42-inch grading bucket. Seems to handle the 42 better than the 36 heaped up. What is a grading bucket?
I guess there's so many different names for buckets, but grading buckets usually got the smooth bars on them, don't they?
Oh, the butter bar?
Maybe.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That's interesting. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look
at
through
the schematic.
I'm going to look through some things and ask some other questions, but that's the kind of stuff I like to do because I don't sleep at night without drugs. So
when's the new V2203 Kubota video coming out?
It's still under there, wrapped up in a plastic bag. Where that video ended is exactly where it stands. I can't get time, man. Goodness gracious.
I'm going to give you your 2-minute warning.
My 2-minute warning.
You don't want to get in trouble today.
Mike's saying I got to quit at 5. I disagree.
I didn't say. I'm just a messenger.
I can quit at 5:30.
I'm just a messenger.
I know.
Okay.
She might still be on here.
I know. You better watch your mouth.
Tell her I'll go dirty.
Whatever that means. Okay. T650, D24, crank, no start, no code. Crank, no start, no code.
Crank,
we'll
no
start ether. Yikes. Don't do that, dude.
We'll start with hydraulic belt off. Okay.
Dealer said low fuel pressure. Well, if it starts with the belt off, you don't have low fuel pressure. You have a parasitic load.
More than likely, yes. You've got a parasitic load, and 90% of the time on them older machines with the D24, it's always a failure or a piece of trash that gets into the Bobtach block. So do you have power Bobtach? That's my first question. And if you don't have power Bobtach, then maybe it's an auxiliary issue. So you'd want to make a hose to loop your auxiliary couplings.
And then see if it turns on.
And see if it'll start. But if you take the drive belt off, you know when I do that, we're trying to eliminate a parasitic load. Yes, it'll help the engine turn over a little bit faster, because if you have low rail pressure, the problem is, your high pressure pump is a high pressure pump, low volume. So the more RPM you get in the engine, the more volume of fuel that you can send to that fuel rail to build that rail pressure. Let's say you're trying to fill up a 5-gallon bucket with a bunch of holes in it, right? That would be let's say the holes are like leaking injectors. So you're pouring water in this bucket and it's just leaking all the fuel out. You can never fill your bucket up to reach pressure. So kind of the same thing, but if you got a bigger hose, a fire hose, you would easily fill that up with all the leaks in there. So does that kind of make sense?
Yep.
Kind of.
Yep.
So yeah, a new pump, even if your other pump wasn't bad, still it's low volume. So if all your injectors are leaking just enough that you can't quite build rail pressure because you don't have enough RPM,
Yes, the first thing you look at when you have low rail pressure is injectors, and definitely not the fuel pump. You kind of go down the tree. You start with injectors, and then you go to the rail. You check the rail to see if it's dirty, and if your rail's dirty, then you can move on to checking your fuel pump. But you don't ever replace just the fuel pump.
And that's
not
right.
going to solve the problem.
Yeah, that's right after you check your fuel filter, though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and supply lines and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So, yeah, it could be a lot of things, but to me, it doesn't sound like you've got an injector issue. It sounds almost more
Well, when
like
I say I check the fuel pump, I mean I check the vane pump for rust. Is what I look for.
Oh, the vane, yeah. So,
but that's what I learned in the dealership.
Cool. Man, well, first, I don't know how far down they are but Steven and Sean both donated, man. I really
you so
appreciate
much.
that, guys.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah, we really do appreciate that. Oh, Marty retracted a message.
Oh,
maybe I am in trouble. Okay. She knows I'll be home on time. It's okay.
Look right here. Brian says Foley Engines is a Deutz dealer, and they have the info on the website.
Yes, Foley Engines. They're off the East Coast, I believe, and they've got a lot of good information. Anything you need for a Deutz, yeah, Foley Engines is really good for that kind of stuff.
Right here. How's it going, guys? Glad to see Mike back on. Yes, thank you. How do you guys go about getting rid of algae? Okay, I got this one.
You got this one. We've done this many a times.
We did it on a cat skid steer. It had a bunch of algae and nasty crap in the tank. So pretty much on that one, it had a plug for the tank, so we could just drain the entire fuel tank, and then we put the plug back in. We fill it with fresh diesel, and
let me go see if I got that diesel clean. What was it I used? I don't remember.
And we used some algae cleaner, some algae stuff in the fuel tank. And then what we did was we took it and we did some wheelies, like literally, actually, we went and did some wheelies to slosh the fuel around. We didn't fill it up all the way. We filled it up like a quarter, half, sloshed it around, drained it. Then I would take the filters off and drain them. And then I would do the same thing, drain it, fill it up, put the cleaner in, slosh it, do some wheelies, do some donuts, same thing. And we did that about 4 or 5 times until the fuel was perfectly clean. We used, it had red diesel in it. We did it until there was no red. It was all green. So that's pretty much how you do it. We use this stuff right here.
Yeah, so it's power service, clear diesel. Yeah, that worked pretty good. It broke it up really quick. Well, we did that tank, what you already told them, probably 3 or 4 times. Drove it around, bounced it around, and that worked pretty good.
I took it up off the loading dock and jumped it off.
Yeah.
Something like that. Thank you very much for taking the time to do these live streams. Thank you, man. We love answering your questions.
Yeah, we do. We really appreciate everyone being here, man. It looks like we're getting more and more people every week, and we really do appreciate the support, man. We love these questions where it helps us learn as much as it helps you as well. So we appreciate it.
Tanner, he said he used the service manual. He works at the world's largest Bobcat dealer group, which is
Barry.
I
think it's Barry or the other one, but
in Texas.
But yeah, they're all over the place. Texas, Colorado, all over. And then you got the East Coast guys.
Maybe they need to come here and if you want, you can snatch some. A couple, one south of us, 2.
Okay, all right. Enough
4 or 5
about the corporate, the people buying up all the mom and pop. We talked about that last week, man. We got all these giant corporations.
Oh, you talked about that last time?
I think so.
Or was it? I wasn't here, was I? When you talked about that?
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, we're talking about, what do they call them? Enterprises.
Make sure
Enterprises are coming in, buying up all the
blood pressure too high.
Yeah, so I try to stay out of that situation, man. But it's like it's a strategy that Bobcat's using. It's like, buy them all up. We don't want the mom and pops on them anymore. We want the giant corporations to own all the dealerships. So yeah, I don't. It's not my okay.
Shiny pants.
Ooh,
6
you in trouble.
Shiny pants and 6-digit salaries. Huh.
Shiny, yeah. Pointy toes, tight jeans, and
6-figure salaries.
7-digit salaries.
7-digit salaries. T300. All
I
lights.
got a Mercedes.
all lights come on with the seat bar except the lift tilt light. Okay. I think this is the same guy. Machine moves.
Codes lift actuator. Well, there you go. You got a lift
actuator, not neutral. So that's. Yes,
there it is. Yeah.
Yeah,
the response to attempts to calibrate. Exactly. Because if it's not in neutral, it won't initiate calibration. So you have to be close to neutral.
And on that one, I think this one, correct me if I'm wrong, you can switch it to find your problem. So you'll switch the harness from the lift. So the lift is on the bottom and the tilt is on the top. Switch your harness and flip them and see if it follows.
Yeah, if your code
If it changes to a tilt actuator non-neutral,
then it's still your lift.
yes.
If it still says lift, then it's probably in
It's
the
in
wiring.
the wiring harness.
So yeah, more than likely, I mean that's real common. You know, it's time to get a new actuator more than likely. Sometimes the actuator pin or even the hole on the spool can be kind of egg-shaped or wore out. That's kind of uncommon,
I've
but
never
it is
seen that
possible. But yeah, that's in the Bobcat manual that talks about that the hole being egg-shaped there.
05 T250, Sean. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Sean.
we really appreciate that. Buddy.
I'm trying to fix the detents for float. I watched your video on this. Well, my control valve has 2 hard lines running behind the back of the valves. Any idea how to get it out?
Yeah, not all of them are super easy. If the hard lines in your way,
Sawzall.
you're going to have to remove the hard lines. Yeah, not cut them, but just take them off to kind of just move them and get them out of your way. If you can remove just one side,
and then maybe,
yeah, or you're going to have to go underneath. Just 2 bolts hold that control valve on, but there's still hard lines all over it on those machines, so it is tough. So yeah, you're just, unfortunately, some machines you just got to move the stuff to get out of your way. So some of them suck. It does. I'm in trouble. Somebody's getting a spanking.
Snap.
Shoot, in that case, I'll be home in a minute.
I tried looping the aux with a male, female, and that didn't start. I do have Bobtach. How should I? Oh, so he did loop it.
So is your Bobtach pegged out in one direction or the other, or while you're trying to start your machine, use your Bobtach switch
And see if it goes.
and see if it'll move.
So if it's up, hold it down, and when you're starting it, see if it comes down.
Mm-hmm. And the engine may not start. I mean, but if it starts to move, usually the engine will start.
But that's with the.
But if you're just using the starter and you're turning the engine over, that Bobtach, your levers should move, with the starter turning the engine over. So yeah, that's usually what it is. So if it's pegged out open, because a lot of people will open it up and it'll die while they're opening, and they're pegged out and it won't start back up. We have to get it moving again. So same thing, like you looped your auxiliary, you can loop that.
And how would you clean so you'd have to take the Bobtach valve off? Or?
So sometimes you got to replace the stem in it. A lot of times, I'd say 90% of the time, I keep working that switch and it just cleans itself out and I don't have to replace anything. But you might end up having to replace the stem at some point. But yeah, you can loop those the Bobtach hose. You might have, some of them had a different fitting on there. If you have, the short hoses where they connect together, you can loop them together and that'll bypass it. But see if you can get them working with the switch first and let us know.
S70 that smokes bad at high RPM. Whoa.
So that's that little 3-cylinder Kubota.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's S70.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I was thinking S76.
Yeah. So it depends on, I say it depends, but it doesn't depend. I mean, what color is the smoke? If it's just doing it at high RPM, because there's no turbo or anything on those little 3-cylinders, is there? I don't think there is.
Nope.
White smoke, black smoke. What's your altitude? A lot of times those little 3-cylinders, even in the what do you call it, the MTs, they smoke at high idle.
Yeah, and they just whenever you go over a relief, they just smoke.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. So some of those 3-cylinder Kubotas, if it's black smoke, that's kind of normal. There is an adjustment. It's non-adjustable, unfortunately. There is an adjustment, but it's not adjustable. If that makes sense, you have to get in there and yeah. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is,
you lost me.
Well, there's an adjustment on there. It's a fuel rack, full travel for the fuel rack, but they got the cap over it, so you can't really remove that cap easier to run the full travel of the end to keep it from smoking like that. So, and what's your altitude? That has something to do with it. Temperature has something to do with it. Load on the engine has something to do with it. So I'd have to almost see the smoke in the situation, but it's kind of normal for the 3-cylinders.
Right here.
Oh, that's Bruce, man. Hell, I just come up there and look at it, buddy. Sorry.
Thanks for the info, lads. Getting advice from master mechanics. Text like this is definitely a privilege. Your videos have been a huge time saver. Thank you, man, for the feedback.
Yeah, and the donation.
Yep,
that's
you so
huge,
much,
man. I really appreciate that, dude.
And then right here, the fix. You guys rock. Thank you. No, you rock, dude. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Yep, appreciate it. That's what we're here for, guys. I mean, we can't, like I said, it's hard to diagnose every issue, off a couple sentences, but we do what we can. We we talk about how things are supposed to work and what it's doing, some symptoms of what could cause those. So we do the best we can, and we really appreciate you guys being here and supporting us on this. This was kind of an experiment, the live thing, and now we really look forward to it.
Yep.
I'd like to do it multiple times a week, but we just don't have the time for it. So
maybe when we retire.
Yeah, when we retire, I'm gonna fix RVs and Bobcats.
Awesome, thanks guys. I put the diesel service biocide and clear diesel in my tank today, going to see if it'll fix it without having to drop the fuel. But worst comes to worst, I'll drop fuel. Yep. Good luck.
Yeah, if you had stuff in there, what you're doing is you're going to break it up with those additives, and you really kind of need to pump all that trash out. You need to get out of your tank and then refill it at some point, or you're going to just really clog up the fuel filters. So I've seen guys who are, when in the process of doing this, they put the inline clear filters in there, and you'll change those out multiple times as you're cleaning this stuff out.
Oh, just one of those ones from O'Reilly's or whatever.
Yeah, just a cheap inline fuel filter, and catch those bigger particles of that algae as it's breaking up.
Yeah, that's what we did. And yeah,
we went through multiple filters on that. Yep.
On my 873, same guy, Ruth Farms. Having another issue with it starting. The machine cranks kind of slow. Has a brand new battery. Will only crank for a few seconds. Cranks hard. I'm guessing my fuel is bleeding back because it stumbles to crank. Well, if it also smokes white and startup turns to a light black haze while running. So it cranks slow with the brand new battery.
So if it's cranking slow with a brand new battery,
voltage drop.
Well, yeah, you'd have to see what the voltage drop is. But again, do we have some type of parasitic load on the hydraulic system like we were talking about a little bit ago?
Yeah.
If it's a manual drive machine or you drive, do you have any creep in it when it does run? Because you could be driving against the brakes, and that'll make the engine turn over slow because you're trying to turn over hydraulic load over to relief. There's several things. So if it's one thing you do is pull off that main hydraulic belt like we were talking about and see if your starter turns it over faster like that. White smoke that turns to black is usually an injector. Cold diesel will burn white when it's cold, and as it heats up, it does smoke more black as it's trying to burn, but it doesn't. All right, have a good night, buddy. See ya. Sorry you had a rough day. Every time I send, that's one of our other guys that helps out here in the shop. Every time he leaves here with somebody, because I send him out to help different people, they always break. He said, every time I've been out, I break down.
Maybe you should.
When he went with the other guy, Lazo, he had a flat tire in that truck. That truck blew a
he's not coming with
line.
me. Okay, let me feel the calls.
Kind of hard guessing the fuel's bleeding back because it stumbles to crank. It also smokes white, and yeah. So we just talked about the injector, but also on those Deutz engines is you got to make sure that the lift pump is good. Your lift pump on the back of the engine there has a screw right in the center of it, and you pull that screw out, and there's a filter. So you got a filter in your lift pump, but a lot of times those lift pumps are just wore out. Because it shouldn't bleed back. It should stay on that side of the lift pump. So, check the screen inside that lift pump, but more than likely you can get those lift pumps really cheap and probably replace. It's just cheap troubleshooting, problem solving, I guess. Just start with that lift pump and see if that helps you at all.
Right here, 2016 S530 with engine temperature issue. It will read no coolant temp, then it goes all the way over to overheating. I will turn the engine off, back on. So maybe it's in.
Well, you have to verify it's overheating. Number one, is your fan working?
Because if the engine thinks it's overheating, it's going to shoot the fan all the way up. Like if you were to unplug the
fan solenoid.
the solenoid, it would shoot the RPM all the way up.
Yeah, the fan speed will go wide open. So is your fan running? Can you verify that the engine is overheating? But it sounds like probably a bad temperature sensor. Is what I would think, or it's going to be a wiring issue. But if your fan is working, I don't think, if you got coolant in the engine, of course, then yeah.
It's not actually overheating. This sounds like a
coolant temp sensor probably to me.
Yeah, because it would, if you were actually overheating, it would take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then you'd see your temperature go up slowly, and it wouldn't stop.
Oh yeah. See, then he said he turned it off and then back on. It's cold. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, so it's an electrical issue.
Yep.
He has replaced the sensor, he says. So it's probably wiring.
Yep. Bruce's blue smoke.
Right here, I was going to just say. He said he replaced the coolant temp sensor.
Okay, so then we've got probably wiring. Not to say it's not an internal
Controller issue.
Controller issue. Yeah, that'd be if it's not the sensor, and I don't see anything obviously in the wiring.
Yeah, check your wiring from the harness to the.
Yeah, I might home out that because you almost have a schematic to see where the where it goes into the gateway controller on that, and home out that wire to see if you got any shorts or anything on it. So I haven't seen that a bad controller issue on the temp sensor side, but it could be possible. I think you're looking at more of a wiring issue. But that harness goes straight into the ECU, and then the ECU tells the
On the Doosan?
the gateway. Yeah, and it sends that signal to the gateway. So, right? Yes, I think that's right.
To tell the panel.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that's a wiring issue. I don't think it'd be a controller issue. So,
He says,
sorry, that one's hard to say.
blue smoke. Bruce.
Blue smoke, and we're in Midvale. I know where you're at, Bruce. If I'm up there next day or two, I'll come by and look at it. But you know, I mean, Bruce, you're used to those MTs. I don't know, is it more than those MTs? You know, when they're kind of pegged out, like I said, those little 3-cylinder Kubotas, that's kind of normal. But
That is blue smoke.
it's blue,
Like oil
crap.
smoke.
Yeah. The first thing I would do is because that thing is really easy to do a compression test on.
Blow by.
Yeah, I'd probably just do a quick compression test on that. Because another thing, Bruce, you know as well as I do, those S70s are so narrow, they get rolled over all the time. And when you roll one over, sometimes they get oil on top of the piston. Someone will start it up without getting the oil off top of the piston. You could bend a rod ever so slightly. And when you bend a connecting rod in that engine, you're not getting full combustion, or you can even break a ring and you could be burning oil, or that's just uncombusted fuel. So first thing I think we should do on that is a compression test on those cylinders to see if one of those rods might be bent just a little bit. And they're ever so slightly bent. That last one you did, it just barely came up.
Ever so slightly.
It was just so sorry.
Snapped in half ever so slightly.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, if it got rolled over at some point, I bet we might have bent a connecting rod on that.
He says, I like the smoke that comes out of my Deutz mosquito control. Yes, sir.
That's when you know they're running good. If that
Yes,
Deutz
sir.
ain't smoking, I'd be checking for something's wrong if it's not smoking.
What solvent do you use to clean hydraulic pumps? Diesel.
Yeah, diesel, number one, to really clean off the heavy stuff. And before we assemble them, we use just a brake clean.
So you take the can of brake clean, you smack it on the table.
That's what, yeah.
Mhm. That's
Yeah.
what I do.
So I get 1 can a month. Mike gets 2 cases a month of brake clean.
Mhm.
I'm a squirt kind of guy. Mike's a
Yep.
but yeah, man, I know everyone's got so many solvents out there, dude. Nothing beats diesel fuel. 30 years I've been doing this crap, and I always go back to diesel fuel. I always try to environmentally safe. This stuff's safe for your hands. Anything that's eco or environmentally friendly as far as a solvent goes, bull crap. It does not work for shit. Throw it in the trash. Do not fall for that scam. Garbage.
The more harmful it is, the better it works.
Exactly.
If it's burning your skin, then you know it's working.
That's right. If it burns your lungs when you breathe it in, that's good stuff. If it'll start an engine cold, that's good stuff.
I tried cranking with Bobtach, held while starter held. It went
went
up.
up.
Yeah, see, it went down. But didn't come
Didn't come
close.
close to
So
starting.
it's going.
270 is not enough to start. No, you need closer to 500, between 400 and 500 RPM. So something's holding that engine back. You got a bad starter on that? Is that a
He
Is
never
that-
took the. I think
no? Because that's an older machine, so you don't have the Czech Republic starter on there. He should have the good starter.
where did he see? Start. He said it'll start with hydraulic belt off, so you don't think
He said it will start.
it will start with the hydraulic belt off.
Where'd you see this?
Right here. Right
Oh, he said it'll start with the belt off.
with the belt off.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Remember? We told him to check to see if it.
Oh, so the Bobtach valve.
The
is
Bobtach
moving.
valve is moving when he cranks it.
Okay. So the next thing, did he loop the hydraulics?
Yes, he
No?
looped the hydraulics.
Oh, and nothing worked. Okay, well then do the leak test on those injectors. I got plenty of videos that show how to do that leak test, the leak back test on those injectors. Well, there's plenty of ways to get a hold of it. Shoot me a picture.
Well, he's got low RPM.
Yeah, it is low RPM.
The ejectors wouldn't make it low RPM.
No.
So
No.
it's
So if you take the belt off, then you get more RPM. But the most common places for a parasitic load is that Bobtach
well. That's what he said.
valve.
He said he tried cranking with Bobtach held.
Yeah.
Wall starter held, and it went up. It moved.
And it went down, but it didn't come close to starting. So it was moving.
Yep.
So that tells me that's not the parasitic load. The auxiliary is not the parasitic load. And that's like the two main places it's going to be. Is that a manual drive machine? It's not trying
That's
to
what I was
drive, is
thinking.
it? Is it, or an SJC machine? Does it try to creep at all? Do you feel it either side trying to move? Gosh, but it starts with the belt off. So something is pulling that RPM down. And I don't think it's, but still, Bobcat's saying it's a leak back test. I mean, those guys should be pretty good. They probably did a leak test on that, and then they can put the laptop on it. And if it is actually low rail pressure, it's probably low rail pressure because it doesn't have enough RPM. So I don't know. We'd almost have to do a one-on-one video call on that so I could see what's going on.
Yeah, because it's not gonna. Even if you have bad injectors, you should be cranking higher than that.
Yeah, you need at least 4 to 5. Most people say it has to have 500, but
I mean, you
it'll
could,
start around 400.
I'm saying, let's say you have blown out injectors, the starter should be getting it that high anyway.
Yeah,
So
it should still be turned over.
it
So
shouldn't
just
have.
tells me there's some.
There's
type
no
of load.
fuel issue.
I don't think. Again, we'd have to see it almost in person.
Something's holding it up.
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on those when those go on sale. What is that, Kevin?
Oh, that's these.
Oh, yeah.
Tool here. Yeah.
What are your thoughts about replacing new MT's oil filters? Yeah, let me tell you, dude. I've done about 1,000 of those, and you just crush them every time. You get one of these ones, but the tiniest one you can get, and it just sucks. There's really nothing else you can do about it. They don't lube the O-rings from the factory. They just don't. So,
again, I like the strap wrench. That's just me. Strap wrench always works for me. I don't know.
I've seen you use it once. It didn't work, so I don't have faith in it.
You can't judge the strap wrench on a Kubota hydraulic filter. It worked for everything.
The air hammer worked. So
well, the air hammer worked, but I don't know. Okay, leave me alone.
Air hammer your MT oil filter is what we're trying to say. He had the dry belt off. It turned a lot faster. Ruth Farms with the Deutz.
Okay. So, well, you're here is all this stuff we're talking about on that
same thing.
That the
you
M
have
series.
A parasitic load.
There's a parasitic load on the drive, auxiliaries.
A hydraulic parasitic load.
I don't think I've ever seen Bobtach on an 870, so I don't think you'd have the Bobtach.
So it'd be auxiliary.
Yeah, I think you've got something in your drive or an auxiliary issue on that. If it turns over a lot faster with the belt off, I mean, there is going to be some hydraulic load because you're turning over all the hydraulic pumps and stuff. You're trying to make charge pressure and all, but it's not enough to slow it down. So I'm again, without being there and hearing it and being able to test that starter, I'm leaning toward a parasitic load. If you're confident the starter's good.
I'm just going to say this one real quick. Check the hydrostatic belt tensioner on that 2016 T650. I've had a few that bearing being bad caused restriction on the belt, caused a slow crank. I've never heard of that before.
Well, but although I don't think I've run into that. He's absolutely right. That could definitely be slowing down that engine, putting a load on
when
it.
you take that belt off, check the wheel.
Yep, it should spin freely.
Yep,
man. That's great
good.
Suggestion.
I've never even thought of that.
Yeah, usually when I find them, there is no bearing left.
Yeah,
they're just free spinning anyways.
Yeah.
But if it's seized, yeah, that's absolutely a viable.
If that belt's just spinning and it's just stuck there, yeah.
Yep, great suggestion.
But the belt would be screaming too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you'd know.
Probably, yeah, it would be screaming loud.
You'd know. When installing new spool seals, should internals of spool also be replaced? I've never seen a spool leak internally.
No.
Well, the spools, they're just like metal to metal seals.
Yeah, it's a very close tolerance. So
unless you're talking like I don't know.
I've never seen a spool leak internally. I mean, spools leak internally. That's why you have a spool seal to keep it from leaking externally. The oil is, because it's such close tolerance, the spool to bore tolerance is so close.
The oil seals it.
Yeah, the oil is your seal in that case, but still some oil is going to leak, and that's where the spool seals come into play, just to keep it from leaking externally. So, oh, you got a bad one, Bruce. Yeah, I guarantee. Let's do a compression test on that, and let me know if you don't have the tester. I'll run mine up there, and we'll do it real quick.
2013 T650, is that the Kubota 2013?
No, 2013 is going to have. Yes, it is going to have the Kubota. Yeah,
hydraulic tank cap gets so tight. Is there a reason for that? I've seen them. They get super
Yeah,
tight.
there,
It's
there are
terrible.
some that I've had to put the channel locks
Yeah,
on.
it's
Is your
terrible.
gasket there? The ones that I think I have to pop off, that little
There's a
rubber
little
gasket.
rubber thin gasket that's like this thin.
Yeah, they're always broken. They're always missing.
Uh-huh,
But
and
the
they
ones
get
that I
terrible.
can't, the ones I can't get off, that gasket's missing. So see if you got that gasket on there.
Yeah. Have to take your shirt off. It gets so tight. You know what I mean?
No, I don't. Oh, y'all. All right, I got 5 minutes.
Okay.
I got to get going, man. Thanks everyone for being here. Let's get a couple of these last questions in, and we're going to take off for tonight.
Whoa. Okay. 595 needs new injectors. Is okay to change the injectors without changing fuel rail. So what you want to do before you make that call, you can unscrew your rail pressure sensor at the end of the fuel rail. It's a 595, so it's on the right side, and you can stick a little Q-tip in there and see if it's dirty. And
Yeah, that's a tough call. You got to see what kind of debris you get out of the
if it's
inside of
dirty,
that
then we
rail.
usually just replace it.
But so many people, I'm different. It seems like everybody puts a swab in there and they get a little bit of black or a little bit of
I've seen them
brown.
be clean.
Yeah, I've seen them clean. Well, that's what I'm saying is,
I guess
So
so
many
the
people
dealer,
so
the
many
protocol
yeah,
is if there's
swap the-
anything on it,
change
You
the whole
change-
fuel
yeah.
system. And I'm not about that. I do my due diligence in checking them, but
this guy.
yeah, it's kind of a tough call. You know what I mean? It's like, if you find debris, if you have a reason to suspect your fuel system's bad, if you had an aftermarket fuel system in there, did you have bad contaminated fuel, rusty, dirty, watery fuel, algae? You know, there's a bunch of things that kind of go into play with that when I make a decision whether or not I'm going to change out the rail or not.
This guy down here says, "Why aren't you greasy right now? Are you sure you work on skid steers?"
Well, he's right. Mike's dirty, but I don't get dirty. I work on skid steers all day, every day. I just don't get dirty.
No, he just cleans his tools and
Yep. I just wipe them down.
he just drags them through the dirt and wipes them down, and
that's it. Nope.
no,
Oh.
this guy, look, this is what he does when he's working on stuff. Before he thinks about what is wrong with the machine, he looks and scans his surroundings for dirt, mud, grease. He will memorize every location of all dirt, grease, mud, anything, and he makes sure he stays clear of it. This guy will go out into some moon dust, mud, like after it's been raining for weeks. He'll come out with nothing on him, except on the bottom of his boots, maybe.
Yeah, I know. Yesterday I was laying in a mud pit because I had to get under a machine. They had to dig me a trench to get under that skid steer. But
And then he put pieces of plywood down, and then blanket and a mattress.
So my favorite thing is that moving blanket from Harbor Freight. If I got to lay on the ground, I use the moving blanket. If I have to lay inside the machine, I lay the moving blanket down, and then I lay down inside the machine. And, you know, if you got blobs of grease all over the tilt cylinders and stuff, I'll take a rag and I'll just wipe the big globs of grease out because I know I'm going to hit it going in and out, you know, and I don't want to get in and out of my service truck with all that grease and dirt and stuff all over me. So I don't know. I've just been doing it for so long. I've kind of learned how to avoid
I haven't got there yet.
getting super dirty. But
I get
sometimes you know you're going to get dirty, and that's why we do keep coveralls, you know, in the truck when you know you're going to get filthy. But
can you do a video on what each pressure relief valve is responsible for on like an excavator?
yeah, excavator or skid steer.
I guess, I mean,
Yeah, I almost started one this morning. We're going to talk about main relief versus charge relief. And then
on a skid steer.
yeah, and
And
then
you're going to talk about high pressure reliefs.
well, that's kind of set. We'll kind of mention, yeah, maybe we'll talk about high pressure
Because they're
relief.
talking about every relief valve.
Well, that's what I mean for every relief.
Then you
but
on
if
an
we
excavator,
start,
then you have to do all your cross port reliefs and
yeah,
everything.
there's a lot. It's different. Then we got reliefs in the oil filter bypass reliefs. So there's a lot of stuff. So yes, I think in some of the videos we'll start mentioning, because I think the one I'm about to do that I tried to do this morning but just didn't get time. We're going to talk about main relief and charge relief, how to adjust the charge reliefs in the hydrostatic pumps.
So you can turn up your
Crank it up.
You can turn up your skid steer and do
That's
wheelies
right.
in it. Pick up 100 pounds.
Yeah,
1,000.
773 fuse keeps blowing, 25 amp fuse, right block particle won't depressurize when key is turned to left. Any ideas? No, I have no ideas. What do you mean depressurize when the key is turned to left? Is that supposed to be an auxiliary relief, or was it?
The aux won't depressurize. Like you can't put a.
Is that a
can't
thing?
put an
You
attachment on.
can turn the key to the left and it'll depressurize?
What?
No way.
Stop lying.
Does it? I've never seen that.
I've never seen that either. I always
Dang.
crack the lines.
That's what I do.
Go look on my 763F over there. It'll be the same thing. It don't depressurize when it, because the problem is we can't depressurize on those valve blocks if you just got the two. If you don't have a valve block, you just got the two individual couplings on the steel lines. We can't really depressurize those.
Bruh,
What?
there is an aux pressure relief. It says it on the thing.
Good God, it says it.
It says it.
We
Aux
learn
pressure
something
relief.
new every day. I've tried.
Look at this rookie.
It never works for me. Jeez.
It says it right there, dude.
But it never works because I'm gonna have to play with that a little bit because it's never worked for me. Because when the machine's
I
off,
did not even.
we
know
don't
that.
have charge pressure to move the spool valve unless you got the newer style coupler. That's the only way you can release it. I'm gonna have to try that.
Hey, thanks, dude.
Good Lord. Like, no way. Jerry just taught us something. Where have I been? That's embarrassing.
He said starter replaced last year with Chinese starter. Did work fine for several months. Now he's tempted to replace the new starter with a Bobcat starter.
Yeah, it's possible, but also check your load and your cables and everything. See what your voltage drop is to your starter. Voltage drop means
You're taking your, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain.
no, I mean basically you just check your battery, 12 volts, and then you put your
Then
meter.
you keep the.
So have someone crank it over, see what your voltage is, your battery, and then check the voltage at the starter as it's turning over. And that
There
tells
you
you,
go.
and
That works.
then subtract the difference. It'll tell you your voltage drop. And if you're getting a big voltage drop, it could just be pulling a whole lot of amperage through the starter, or you could just have bad cables or something.
2004 S185. Can you add power bob attached to the machine? Didn't come from the factory.
Yeah,
2004?
Yeah, I think so on a 2004.
That kind of sucked, dude.
Yeah, I think it might have it's just not feasible on that.
They have like tube lines that go up around the engine, don't they?
Yeah, they might have a kit for it. It might depend on the serial number, but
I've done it on a 5600 or UW56. You had to add power bob attach because they didn't come from the factory, and I tell you, it was terrible, and it's not worth it. It's terrible.
yeah, I don't see it being feasible on that. Are you hooking and unhooking hydraulic attachments often? If not, what I'm going to do on my 763, because I only do buckets and forks, I'm going to use my auxiliary hydraulics I'm going to hook up a Bobtach cylinder, and I'm going to put an orifice in it to slow down that auxiliary flow. And I'm just going to leave it hooked to
You don't
my
want it to
auxiliary.
slam?
No, you don't want it to
Wham!
wham, wham. So I'm going to slow it down because I'm only doing bucket and fork, so I don't have to take the auxiliaries on and off. So I'm just going to use my auxiliary ports to run
That's
my
a good idea, dude.
Bobtach cylinder. So it depends on, that's the only way it'd be feasible for me to do it on that machine. So
Right here he says, to be more specific, he's talking about the O-ring inside the spool.
the O-ring inside the spool. Which O-ring is that?
He says he uses a grapple, so no, you'd have to.
Yeah, you need your auxiliaries.
You need your auxiliaries for the grapple.
I mean, there's only an O-ring on the front cap plate there. O-ring.
Have you used the snap-on
Have to
mat?
be more specific.
I have a cornwell mat, if it's the foam one you're talking about, and it's nice. I like it. It just gets really dirty and kind of soaks up dirt and oil because it's made of foam.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a piece of plywood and I put it underneath it. I call it Mike's Hardwood, and I lost it.
Mike's Hardwood.
So
I've got the Husky one from Home Depot is the mat that I use.
It-
You're talking. You got a full lay on.
I got the full lay on
Mine's
that.
more
He's
of
got
a
the knee pad.
kneeling
Yeah.
pad. Yeah.
I like mine. You can, if you get the plywood and the mat, you can, when the cab is up in the air, you can stick it in between the levers, and it's like solid.
Is this 873 that goes to the left? So that's one that's hard to start.
No, he's talking goes left as in the key.
Oh, it does. Okay. Jeez.
Auxiliary release.
I thought that one. And it says.
Yeah, it says it on there.
Oh, and that's
No
got a
cap.
separate go plug switch. Okay.
No cap.
Unbelievable.
Tiny
You can
O-ring
check
inside
your
lift
starter
spool.
with your amp clamp too. Yes, you can. If you got a DC amp clamp, you can check that.
Tiny O-ring inside lift spool.
Lift spool, lift spool, lift spool. Tiny O-ring and lift spool. I'm drawing a blank, Mike.
Inside? You have to go watch your video again.
Oh, and the lift spool, yes, the very tiny O-ring with the plug for the cross drill for the float function. That's what he's talking about. And it's a tiny O-ring. I'm with you now. What's the problem with it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Can it leak from there? Dang, I'm going to have to go back and see what
Oh,
the
he said
original
he wants to
question
change
was.
it.
Oh, you want to change it?
Should internals of spool. He's talking. He replace that O-ring?
Oh, if you suspect that it's leaked. So if you're doing the spools
I
anyways,
guess if
it was
you're
leaking
replacing
bad,
it anyway, if you're taking it apart anyway, just do it.
I don't always do it because it usually is just a spool seal. It's more rare for that to leak. But there's been times where I've had to go back and replace that because it was still leaking after I did a spool seal. So, yeah, I mean, if you're in there, it's not going to hurt. It's pretty cheap to do. You have to get both the plug and the O-ring. I'm with you now. And that's where we heated up the Allen wrench. You kind of put it down in there, melt it into the plastic, let it cool, then you can yank it out. So, okay, I'm with you now. Yeah, if you're already in there and you got your spool out, go ahead and do it. No problem. Yep.
Okay, that's it. We're done.
All right. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much
don't
for
get your
being
butt
here. Yeah, thanks for the support. I do have to go today, but at least I showed up, although I do have to
Whoa.
leave. So, all right, guys. Thanks again. Any questions, save them up for next Tuesday.
Thank you for all the donations. You guys are amazing.
Oh, dude, that is so huge, man. That kind of helps us pay for our monsters and
Beers.
And we got to pay for these too sometimes. All right. Have a good night, guys. Thanks again.
See ya.